Meeting to order, roll call. I don't know, Arturo, if you want to do the roll call?
Yes, I'll do the roll call real quick.
I'm sorry, there's two Arturo, so.
Thank you.
No problem. I'm complimented by my fellow chairman over here, Mr. Tocayo. Okay, Mr. Chairman, John Villarreal,
Present?
Arturo Dominguez, Ronnie Rodriguez, Mayra Hernandez, present. Guadalupe Ramirez,
Present.
Sylvia O. Appraisal.
Yeah,
Julian,
she's no longer a member.
Okay.
But I guess do the roll call. Then.
Julian Rovnowski,
Sure.
Mr. Joe Maldonado.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Very good, very good. Minutes, we don't have the minutes from our last meeting. So we'll go on to our agenda item, which is discussion and possible action on updating the neighborhood empowerment zone ordinances. And I have several people here from the city. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule. And y'all just please just mention who you are and your title for the committee members.
Sure, the Roland Lozano with City of Laredo. I'm the NEZ, I guess, one of the many hats that I wear at the building department. So I process the NEZ application, and so that's why I am, if you have any questions.
And I'm Jerry Pinzon, I'm the acting building official with the City of Laredo.
Victor Linares, the acting building director. Anything that we can do to assist, we're ready to hear that.
Okay, so Victor and Jerry, so you're acting, I'm sorry, the titles,
Building official
okay,
and director.
okay. Okay, very good. Well, thank you all very much. I know I have this,
Tiffany.
Tiffany, right? Thank you, Tiffany. Very good. So we'll go on to our agenda item, Julian. I know that you brought this agenda item. Thank you so much. And I think just like we mentioned in the past, we implemented a lot of the NEC regulations. We implemented here at this committee some time back. Julian's mom was very instrumental in doing that. And I'm very happy to have Julian now in the committee. He was appointed this past, I believe the past city, or last month, I don't know which meeting, but the last month. So, thank you, Julian. Go ahead. Yeah.
So, a little project that I've kind of put together is tried to figure out what other cities have been doing for their, not just central business district, but inner city. The NEZ has been, great for Laredo. I've been driving around Saunders and all the different parts that NEZ has. It's interesting because you are seeing new buildings, these really nice buildings go up. So it's been very instrumental in already the reinvestments that have been happening in the inner city specifically. What I've been more intrigued on is what else we can do, and specifically what else have other cities done that have been proven to be really successful. And the biggest model the most successful model that I've seen is what San Antonio did. And they had something called this ICRIP Inner City Reinvestment Plan. And I have a copy of it here if you guys want to see it.
ICRIP, how do you spell it?
ICRIP. And they recently actually updated it.
I see what?
ICRIP, ICRIP, Inner City Reinvestment Plan, and it's kind of been the model that I've been looking at thus far. My goal eventually, and possibly if it can happen in this meeting, is to approve a committee to be put together so we can start working on it. What ICRIP did is we actually froze it. I think about a couple of months ago, because there was this kind of call to, did it really help San Antonio's downtown? Visually, you look around and it's obviously it did. It put a lot of housing downtown. But the question was the investment that was put forth in the core, like did it profit the city? Did it actually pay off in the incentives that were given? And the Rivard report did a study on it, and it actually paid for in twofold over a course of 7 years. So it was incredibly successful. to the point where they put it on hold, and now all they did is some minor updates, and it's back on, and it's only for the inner city of San Antonio.
Is this for residents?
This is only for residential. Now, in iCrypt, they eventually did include, and you can see at the bottom of the page, the mixed-use forgivable loan. This is something I would love to hear everyone's opinion on. They really believe that, in order for the residential to be extremely successful, they needed to have that cohabitation, which is mixed use, of having that retail at the bottom of all of them. So they wanted to make sure whoever was developing these apartment complexes downtown included, full livability and the fact there are cafes and stuff at the bottom. So they incentivized that by doing a 5-year forgivable loan. So if that, let's say I developed this apartment complex and on the downstairs I found a tenant that was looking to go in there, they gave $20 a square foot, and if that tenant was in there for 5 years, the full course of that loan would have been forgiven. So they were pretty much giving money away to get retailers down there.
So that's an allowance that they would give for the remodeling?
That was an allowance, and that money came from, and this is where the TERS comes into place, that money came from, money's from the tax increment reinvestment zone in San Antonio's downtown, and from the city. So it was a partnership deal to put the funding together. They don't actually have, their downtown doesn't have an NEZ. What they did is they structured their TERS to act like it, and you can see it at the top where it says city fee waivers, SAWS fee waivers. All those were reimbursements done through the TERS. So there was this hybrid system that they used. The good thing is we actually have the NEZ, and that's why I titled this to talk about updating the NEZ, because that is the smoothest way to get this whole process done.
In my understanding that our TERS has about $250,000 and $300,000 or more that I guess will that be available this coming year? I don't know if y'all.
They haven't approved, I went to the last meeting, I'm not sure when the next one's coming up. They have not approved where the funding's gonna go. And I think that's a good thing, because I think we need to start conversations if we were to go forth on a project like this. And specifically, what I'm going to be talking about is the development loan. So you can see the breakdown. It's the fourth box, development loan, 2% interest, 7-year loan, calculated per housing unit. And the way they set it up is they had 2 brackets. One just for general housing, the downtown, and then they had, if you had 2 or more categories, and the categories are listed in the 90-page breakdown. But the categories are if it had enough parking. So let's say we did an apartment complex downtown, even though there are no in the CBD parking requirements, if you did meet the standard parking requirements, that was another category that you hit. So if you hit more than one category, they doubled the loan from $3,000 to $6,000 for if it was in the CBD. And the GDA, which is the surrounding, more of the inner city surrounding the central business district, then it would double the amount also. So this is the kind of way I would love to structure this is for...
Julian, like over there in San Antonio, I guess the central business district is the boundaries, the expressways, or is it, I guess 30,
it's a legally
90,
defined.
37?
Yeah, it's funny because San Antonio is so big.
Or maybe I guess it takes into account like the Pearl District, maybe a little bit.
That's actually not the CBD. CBD, trying to name off streets. It's actually it's a small core in the center of the city.
Okay. So it's smaller than all the expressways?
Yeah, if you looked at the highways, that is not necessarily the CBD. It's if you shrunk down in every direction, that is the central business district where you see the conference center, the convention center, the Riverwalk. That is the CBD. So when you go
that new area, what is it, or the old area, the St.
Anthony,
the St. or the kind of toward the south. Is it the St. Peter's? Is it, I don't know if it's the St. George's area?
Or St. Peter's, are you talking about here or San
No,
Antonio?
in San Antonio.
San Antonio, you're talking about Southtown and that whole thing. That is actually not the CBD.
Okay.
So now that does still fall under this whole system, but like I said, you have the CBD category and then you have more of the inner city category. So all those were still included in these incentives. And if you look at all the projects, you literally see the projects within the bounds of this incentive policy that they set forth. So what I would love to do is develop something very similar to what San Antonio had, because it's been a very proven successful incentive policy. I'm also looking into Austin, and the reason behind that is Austin had a system set up for density bonuses. So in certain areas in Austin that, let's say you were only allowed to build 3 stories, they would allow you to add another story or 2 stories if you included market rent housing for those additional stories. So they incentivized redevelopment within neighborhoods that were close to their urban core also. And I believe the reason why this is important, not just in a factor of, oh, we need to, you know, fix our core, but I think in the long run, as a city and being efficient as a city, when we're talking about what it costs to maintain these roads, the further we go out, you know, the higher our maintenance costs are going to become for a city, you know, all that infrastructure that we're investing in. We need to figure out how to already utilize the current infrastructure we have and densify these neighborhoods and allow that opportunity. You know, we don't have to force anything, but if someone wants to add more stories onto their building, I think it would be really interesting to see if we can include something like that in the proposals, where previously someone that couldn't build taller than 2 stories can now add an extra story that includes market rate or affordable housing. So that's another avenue I've been looking into, which Austin has right now.
So this CRIP is basically an incentive program to develop, and you're trying to
Housing.
bring it for residential? And
Yes.
you're trying to bring it to downtown?
So just like this one has the central business district, and then it also has an incentive for the surrounding urban core, I want to do the same thing, you
But for
know.
downtown.
Copy?
For downtown, all the, oh,
Julie, do you have
Yeah.
an extra copy?
And trust me, I'm only asking on
Yeah.
the side of compliance and code, because what I see for residential, and the residential code will say, you need sprinkler systems.
yes.
And the existing infrastructure, is it set up? Because that's where the cost of, whoever's gonna develop, they're gonna go, hey man, just to put my sprinkler system is going to be a cost involved.
Yes.
And I understand that we already, in the CBD, Central Business.
CBD.
Yeah, CBD, the parking is less, it's not as stringent as normally somewhere else, so that could benefit, right? But at the end of the day, you're bringing in more people, you're bringing in vehicles. And you're limiting, you already have a limited amount of roadway. Where are we gonna put it, you know? That's one thing, and I don't know how that, you know, that's not from the building.
Are you
that's
talking
not
about the CBD, or what are you specifically?
No, I'm saying with the, I know, because the city's already tasked to have the, what is it called, the development, the planning.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Laredo plan, or what?
Yeah, well, one is Laredo, but the other one is they're redoing the,
The codes.
MPO?
yeah, no, not the MPO, what's it called? I went blank my mind. We're talking about that at the planning and zoning, is
Comprehensive plan?
the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
They're already tasked to do the comprehensive plan, so, you know, not to put a monkey wrench on that, but I'm just saying, how does that fit into what they're already tasked, the city's already tasking those departments to do?
So pertaining to the comp plan that has been approved by the city, this actually falls within that
Okay.
whole plan.
Oh, okay.
So
Falls
we're
under-
not divesting from that at
Oh,
all.
okay, okay.
This is actually, this plays exactly into what was asked by the citizens of Laredo is.
Because that, remember yesterday at the planning and zoning, one of the planning and zoning commission members, or what do they call them, commissioners, or they were asking about the density, is that really what they want, and how does that, when they were talking about when we were increasing the setbacks and things. So I don't know if that's,
Is that really who wants?
no,
That's
no,
a
that
question.
was a question of one of the, is that really what the city wants? That's what he was asking, and we're like, wait, we're just building.
Well, I guess the question is like the comprehensive plan, it's promoting pretty much higher density, right? That's-
Yeah, so speaking on the comp plan, and what do the Laredoans want, it's higher densities.
Higher density, and also probably, I guess, to
Walkability.
amend all the codes, right?
Land development.
Because right now, I mean, y'all y'all are more privy than me, is right now, if you wanna try and do what you wanna do, add residential, I don't know if it's, like you said, if it's economically feasible or if it's even allowed.
So, I think what you're referring to, if you're talking about planning and zoning, is the update of the actual like zoning codes, which has to do with like new development. A lot of this actually plays into already existing structures, that's what I'm really referring to, and
Okay.
roads that have already been laid. We're already tapping into the existing infrastructure.
But you have existing infrastructures, but you wanna rehab those existing.
So,
So what is required right now? Like, for example, you have, I think your typical right now, you might have a showroom or an empty showroom downstairs, but you might have a second,
third
a
story.
second or third story that
That could be
was
residential.
used for storage, so.
And right now it's empty.
Right now, but what you need to make that possible is that the water line that's in the street, that may be 6 or 8 inch, needs to be really 12 and 16 inch because of the fire protection. To get the flow that you need to comply with the code for residential. And so, I know they're fixing some of these lines, but I'm just saying from a code perspective, that's what the city needs, is to verify.
And I think what I'm seeing what Roland's trying to say, I don't think he's going against any.
No,
no.
It's the caution, the caution of the increased density, increases water demand, sewer demand, on the infrastructure.
So-
Parking and so it's just that caution, just that balance from the city, I guess.
No, I'm just saying,
Public
so the
improvements
incentive,
private improvements.
understand what needs to be done outside to incent, and who pays, I'm just saying code-wise, what is required?
Who pays for, so specifically what you,
I'm not saying who pays for it, I'm just saying,
There's
what
no-
you need.
no, well, that's, I'm just curious, I'm just playing to what you just said right now. Who pays for that line?
The landlord, the owner of the building.
Right now, the city's already doing some improvements, I don't know if you.
Yeah, pretty much, I guess,
I know.
let's say, like, pretending we're just not
Yeah.
downtown, when it comes to sites, you already have sites already designated with zone use and such, and so the development, the way it's done, new development, they size it accordingly for that development, so they already know it's multifamily, they already know it's commercial, so it's sized accordingly, and so probably the only thing is, when it comes for existing infrastructure, then usually it does fall a lot on the city to provide those upgrades, because it's not gonna be like new development where, I'm renting this section, it's gonna be a building downtown, I'm renting this section, I have to improve this, it doesn't make sense on a downtown scenario. I think it's falling more on the city on
And the other thing is
infrastructure-wise.
the corridors. Remember when these buildings were built, these codes didn't say, we had little staircases and that may or may not meet the fire code for the ingress egress. So those are all the internal, if you already, I don't know.
Well,
how much you-
let me touch on everything you said. So let's just assume for the sake of simplicity that the city's not in charge of increasing that diameter of the pipe. And it's the developer that goes in, or the person that's fixing this building goes in. At the end of the day, I think every single person will agree that the total cost is all that matters. The total cost of doing this is beneficial to that developer or that person, then he's gonna do it. And that's why something like this is extremely important, because that's what this handles, so.
We need to incentive, in other words, for it to
It needs to
be
be feasible.
economically feasible,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
need to look at what the costs are, like he said, but we need to incentivize. Now, we got the NEZs where you waive some of the, you waive most, not all of the city permit fees and all that stuff, and then you have the abatement, right? And depending if you fit in within the formula, 5 or 10 years. But then we gotta look, what is if you look at the comprehensive plan, the way we're looking at, let's say that Prop B passes and that everything goes through where you get a conference center. You've got the outlet mall. I think Joseph Ives made it, he said it very well. He said, it's not one thing that's gonna make downtown better, it's gonna be a multiple of things.
Well, let me be clear, there will be one thing, and without this thing, no matter what you do, it'll really stunt the growth of any urban core. It's people living in that area. So, let me be really clear and say, this is absolutely the most important thing that I think we can do for our urban core, is densification, getting people to move back into those areas.
And from building, I'm just shining a light on what the code.
Yeah, so and I've done a building downtown, I understand the sprinkler
I don't
system and all,
know.
but at the end of the day, what I'm looking at is not, did I need a sprinkler system or did I not need a sprinkler system, is what was the total cost of the project?
Yes.
And am I making a return on it? So, it doesn't matter what's required, it just matters the total cost of it. So, what would be a good practice, especially speaking on that, in determining the actual incentives, is doing a model and figuring out, going, okay, let's look at some buildings downtown, and let's determine this and this and this needs to be done, and that's the total
I
cost.
think Arturo had a
Yes,
question.
absolutely.
Okay.
I just wanted to make a comment, I'm not in the business of buildings and stuff like that. The part that I don't understand is we pay so much in the fire department and we have to put sprinkler systems. I mean, hello?
Yes.
I don't know.
Well,
As a lawyer, that's probably a pretty big deal, so.
Let's not look at that in
we probably need
inspectors and all
sprinkler
that.
systems.
But I can see where you have to,
No, but
you have to weigh safety of the residents, of the citizens versus, the economic feasibility. And that's where we come in,
For the
where we can
city.
say, look, for it to be feasible, we might need to incentivize where we can hopefully be able to accomplish both, right?
Yeah.
The city's gonna be paying for this infrastructure already.
Sprinkler
That-
system?
No, I'm talking about the fact that, the way the downtown looks right now, so why wouldn't you wanna reactivate it? And then, bring up the values in the area?
Yeah,
It-
and the only thing that it's just more, we totally like the agree, the only thing it's like what you guys were saying about making a model, it's kind of I guess we're thinking more of like a civil engineer, it's just let's say, for example, it's higher density, the demand is so much, it's more of modeling, okay, it's more on the city side, okay, the existing infrastructure, if this program works great, then logically the density is gonna get higher, demand's gonna get greater. Do we have the infrastructure for it? And then that's on utilities end, and to say kind of like, hey, you know what, city manager, we need to program projects, to which they're kind of doing right now, as we're speaking, to upgrade lines, upgrade this, upgrade that. Like in the future, if some hotel once comes in, it's ready. Or some, like higher density apartment complex once comes in, it's ready. And so it's just that caution, it's just that balance. But when it comes further, what you're proposing, it's a good concept. yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's gonna take us working with the city to determine what these total costs are gonna be, because that's what's gonna define this. Because at the end of the day, we're not looking to make this cheaper than everything else, we're looking to make it as competitive as everything else. That's the end goal.
And I think the model's already been made. I think Arturo, don't you already have a residential building here, catty corner from here?
Yes, we're out for bids right now. The city's building a 15-unit studio units for elderly, right catty corner to us, it's a two-story building. We're out for bids right now, so we'll find out that marker.
Is that a new building
So
or
that- yeah,
existing?
so was that,
It's an existing
was
building.
that commercial
We have-
before?
we're converting, I'm sorry.
so that's been converted from,
No, it's out for bid, it's gonna be converted into elderly housing.
okay.
I think it was like more commercial on the bottom floor, and then like most buildings, the
Retail.
second floor, yeah.
So,
Didn't we have a bid already? I think I heard that at city council,
Yes,
that it
yeah.
was like $300 a square foot. It was,
Well, there's several factors to, Arturo Garcia for the record. Community development,
see,
Yes, that did come into effect in terms of, those were numbers that were being thrown out.
yes, I remember.
If somebody could validate those numbers, we were estimating.
So you said $300
It
square
was
foot? That would be the cost?
The number that was mentioned was $225.
A square
A
foot
square foot, yes.
for a low-income housing.
Well, it was for low income affordable housing. Now,
Yes.
it's,
which is,
the competitive thing, once you come to downtown and you're dealing with a historic building,
That's a whole other.
that's a
you
whole
can't
different
compare.
realm of, you cannot compare that project type to new construction in North Laredo. And so the point
full
of which
structure.
this project came up for council consideration was, where do you want to put it? Do you want to invest it here in downtown, preserve a historic building, keep it within proximity to existing elderly housing and that social environment and social network? Or do you want to put it somewhere in the outskirts where there's no transportation grid, no social network built out? And, it might be a little bit
You need-
cheaper, but
You need
it's,
The cost ends up coming in other areas.
yes, so it's,
and then you got like the Bender, I mean, I don't know, my understanding, the
so those were the
Bender.
issues with that.
Yes.
I think that's what he's referring
And
to.
we will find out the true number
The Bender.
in less than 2 weeks.
Yes.
Okay, yes. I just
But
thought
that
it was a
included the
little
price of the land,
high.
right?
Well, those were numbers people were throwing out. We're gonna know the true number in less than.
That's not including the land, that was just the restriction.
And really, the
Not the
Bender has
building.
very little land, I mean, it's really all, it's all building. I think it might have a little parking on the east side.
Well, that's another building, the housing authority is looking at that building in cooperation with,
Also, that's not that building, the
No.
one, that one's, you said those are.
This is the old
Oh.
KG&S building. KG&S used to be located catty corner to us right here.
Okay.
It's right here, if you go outside
So,
the south
so
door.
you got the
it's catty
Hamilton,
corner.
you've got the, where the, you got the shopping, you got the parking lot,
And then next
Catan
one.
at the corner.
And right
That's not it.
The
parking.
To just mention, the city in some way, form, or fashion, through its subsidiary corporation, Laredo Housing Finance Corporation, own the entire block.
Okay.
No,
So,
if-
but like,
if-
if you want private sector money, I mean, and then to try and compete against
Don't minimize or.
public sector, I mean,
But that's
Don't
different.
exit,
That,
minimize it.
what I'm
We're just going
proposing
to the
is
tab, right?
market
Yeah.
rate.
Or
I'm not
you
proposing.
right, no, no, I know,
Yeah.
you're proposing
You're
private
private
sector money,
sector.
but you gotta,
Oh, you could just
but
make it a
then,
tab.
are you gonna be
Yeah, that's what I was.
competing against?
No, no,
Can I just speak to this
Yeah.
real quick?
Oh, you know what,
The
I'll just-
initial intent, and now with the direction and the comprehensive plan being completed, and the input that's coming in based on all our downtown input, the city, we're looking at a different strategic viewpoint. We're trying to do mixed income development. So all our, for example, the monies that I'm dealing with from community development is CDBG. So it has to be focused towards low income individuals. So in this particular case, with this project, with the elderly housing, it's all focused at low income. But future projects, we intend to do mixed income development to where we can be assured our few low income units with this money, but subsidize some of that money so there can be some mixed income development in there. Because we know that's what, like Mr. Ronowski's mentioning, we're trying to focus on that to bring disposable income to them.
Well, then you've got the elderly, but then you've got the young crowd. You've got, like, right now, now there's like 20 bars downtown?
15?
I have a question.
In other words, everything is moving in, I mean,
It's starting to.
it's starting to come in. I think It Street, I think Siete Banderas was sort of like the anchor. I think your family is doing a bar? Or,
We did a building, and we have 3 bars going in that.
okay. And so hopefully, I mean, ideally, I mean, it's not gonna be a 6th Street, but it's sort of like the model of being able to go downtown and having like It Street, Iturbide, and being able to, people come in, you get friends, hey, y'all wanna go downtown, there's, it's like you go to Austin, people wanna go to 6th Street, right?
Yeah.
And we wouldn't be competing against, private sector coming in to do this wouldn't be competing. If anything, there's a huge need for affordable, and when I say affordable, I don't mean government subsidized or anything. Affordable, I mean market rate housing in Laredo. There already is a big need. So if anything, it's not being produced fast enough. So I don't think in any way does this really compete. If anything, it works in conjunction with
I'm
it.
not really looking at the TA that can't afford it and.
But yeah, but I guess if you're gonna, I guess the question is, if you're gonna rehab a building downtown, at the end of the day, turnkey, you're gonna be in it at how much? Are you gonna be in it at $100 a square foot? are you gonna be in it at 225, where you get in it at 225, Lupita knows, using the business, it's not economically feasible. So it's we gotta, and Julian, we gotta get it to a point where it's a win, hopefully it's a win-win for everybody, where we can incentivize, we can, of course, the city also has M&O, have their costs, but be able to incentivize to try and get people down, to live downtown. Now, what type of people do you foresee that live downtown? You've got the young crowd, you've got families, you've got the elderly.
So there was a study done, or it was part of a comprehensive plan specifically, that found out the average Laredoan spends about 30% of their household income due to their vehicle, transportation, if they own a car. So who do I believe would utilize this? First of all, I think when you talk about, just to knock out a category, millennials, there was a study done by the National Association of Realtors that stated over 60% of millennials want to live in a walkable urban area, which typically are downtowns. So but they're looking for a walkable urban area. I think you're gonna have a lot of young people move into this area. I'm actually trying to fix up a building so I can move downtown, because that's where I wanna live.
And to me, you look at like the St. Peter's area, you've got some beautiful homes there. And I know, like the school district, they're trying to sell, correct?
And you do have, and what's really interesting about the downtown is people don't realize a lot of people work down here. And the truth is if you work down here and you're able to live down here, you're pretty much staying in one area. Your cost of transportation goes down. So I think there's a affordability aspect to the whole thing.
So Mr. Roski, did that study include restaurants, grocery stores? What else is it gonna need for residential to be down here?
Well, the same thing that any residential typically needs. It's restaurants, grocery stores, entertainment, live, work, and play. Those are the three core things that are required. But one of the reasons why transportation costs are so high is not necessarily just because you own a car. It's typically people live in suburban neighborhoods and they commute far distances, so there's.
Well, I think you get a lot of people like in the south that work in the Mines Road area, right?
Yeah.
Or in the north that work in the south.
Or you're right.
Traffic is.
A lot of people in the north work in the south.
Oh, yes,
It's one of the
yes.
reasons
I
we.
travel every day.
Okay.
So-
I just had a question, if the city would do the upgrading of the water lines to the buildings, you still are asking, well, or according to this plan.
This is just an example
Yes,
of
just an
San Antonio's,
example. For a mixed-use forgivable loan, where that loans come from the city, from our taxpayers?
This is something I kind of wanted, no. All of this was funded, well, yes, it was a hybrid system. It was what San Antonio used is the tax increment reinvestment zone, and then the city put in funds. Now, that was the first part of the whole statement I made. The funds that were put into this budget have paid for themselves and an extra double.
Do we still have money in the purse?
There's
Keep
like
on-
300,000, there's like 300,000.
Yeah.
I don't know
In
if
the
anybody's
purse, not
crazy
the
to that.
downtown?
I think I don't know the exact amount, to be honest, but I do know it's over
Quarter to-
200.
I thought a quarter to 300,000.
Possibly, I don't want to miss.
I don't know if y'all
Yeah,
are.
because for the
They're
tours,
meeting
there
again
has
on
to be
Tuesday.
development.
I'm sorry?
They're meeting again on Tuesday and
Okay.
they'll have their financial.
Well, I'll go to that meeting,
You know, for the tours, there has to be development and taxes charged so that it can go into the fund, right?
Yep.
So has the downtown done enough development on the tour section to be able to tap into that one, to put it back and then have the city put money into it too? And then have it forgivable?
Can you see? Well,
I don't know, did I
the
explain
mixed
myself?
use, okay, first of all, the mixed use forgivable on the this is for retail, this isn't for housing.
Right, but you're
I'm not-
suggesting having retail at the bottom and then you would put housing on the second floor.
I'm more curious on your opinions on the mixed use forgivable loan. That's
Yeah.
not what I'm really pushing for. I think a good starting point that we really need to focus on is just incentivizing residential. Because we already have retail going downtown. We already have that happening, and we
Yes.
already have the city assisting in that. So I don't think that is as important. It's more important on the redevelopment cost of these buildings, like you mentioned, the sprinkler
Because I
systems.
think we all would want a forgivable loan, but
Yeah.
we want to make sure where it's coming from.
Well, that is only for the retail, that's for business. The development for the housing is not a forgivable loan.
It's a
Now,
2% interest, but that money would be coming from the TERS?
TERS in the city, that's
And
what
the
San
city.
Antonio did.
And
Yes.
where is the city getting the money from?
That's a discussion we can have
Well,
from
the
them.
terrace is on the lift of the.
Yeah, but I, it's like,
Yeah, we
yeah,
wouldn't do
of the
that.
lift of the
That's not our
downtown, have we done enough lift downtown to create a fund on the TERS?
Well, there's a
That's my
fund, it's
question.
just, like you said, it hasn't been
Calculated
allocated.
yet?
The TERS was
It
not the
hasn't been
primary funding
determined.
source of San Antonio's CHIP program.
So
It
what was
wasn't.
the main funding?
It was the city.
It was the
And,
city.
and that's why it was actually recently put on hold, because people were claiming that it actually didn't pay for itself, and it proved that it completely paid for
Do
itself.
we have a
and
list of the
more.
downtown owners that want to do that?
The downtown owners that want to do what?
That wants to do the development?
The development?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have
A list of the downtown building owners that are asking to do that type of development?
specifically for the goal of what? Because I can tell you
Of
that
the
there are.
residential, of what you're talking about?
Well, I'm already working on speaking with actually Jose Ceballos, which is, I don't know how many people he's talking to
Yes.
right now that are trying to do this. So
Yeah.
yes.
We do
to
have a
get
list.
No, I don't have a list, but I've been in conversations with multiple people.
But I think it's also, we need to have enough incentives or be able, like you said, do the model where
Yes.
when people start crunching the numbers, that it makes economic sense, because if it, and to have everything in place, have the ordinances in place, because like right now, like, I guess that's a building there, but that's in conjunction with the city, but if you get another building,
Well, downtown, you gotta keep in mind, for a sprinkler system is just one thing. You get involved with a historical department, you know, or a historical district, that's another, as developers know,
Yes.
you know, that's another hurdle that you gotta cross that, you know, sometimes, is it feasible, time-wise and all that?
Limited access,
and that's,
parking,
and that's sort of,
construction.
and that's where we're coming in. We're coming in and saying,
And
How
as far
can
as
we
the city
close
is
that
concerned,
gap?
I know on the NEZ, it's a nice ordinance, don't get me wrong. It was never, like, there's no, the city never looked
It's
at that.
it's a.
Who's
not
gonna manage it?
Tennessee,
How's it gonna
it's-
be managed? Like, oh, building, you do this. It's like, it just, there's no, you know, how do you keep track of all this? Because there's inspections, there's a lot of things that need to be done just on the NEZs. Every year you need to go back.
Yes.
Is it in compliance? If not, there goes your abatement. You know, those are all in there that, you know, how's it gonna be managed, you know? That's where, from as far as the staff, when they look at these things, we're all for incentive and building, and trust me, building once for you guys to build, you know, but, we're tasked to meet the code, apply the code, make sure that, and so, really what we're looking
With
at.
this, yes, I agree, there needs to be some, I've stated it before, that I think, one, there should be at least one official within the building department that understands exactly how the code should be read, because I hear a lot of the time that, well, we can't do the building, these are the codes, yet the codes that are being read off of are the same codes in Austin and San Antonio, and I see those same exact buildings being developed easily. So, I think we said in the last meeting that we need to take a trip with the building department to these other cities and see how they've done it. I do believe you're understaffed. I'm not gonna deny that.
Staff and overwork.
Under budget and overwork.
Yes, with that being said, I will say it. I see that.
Yes.
So,
We run around
I
chicken
agree
salad.
with something like this, that this is pointless if you don't have someone that's actually processing it. So I agree.
But we can look into
That's-
how they control it as well.
It's all part of this.
Yes.
It's all in this.
We take the trip and we go see how they control it as well.
We'll drive you up there. It won't cost the city a dime.
I do want to mention two things that were kind of mentioned by Ms. Ramirez earlier on. The TERS board did receive a presentation from the utilities department and the other utilities companies representing of what improvements are doing in downtown. It's not too far when we walk outside, you're gonna see a lot of the utilities already replacing a lot of the water lines down there.
Yes, yes.
So there's a
yes.
huge
Seeing all those
plan right
poles
now,
everywhere.
and that's coming out of their budget. They've, I think, allocated $7 million for that. If I
The
remember
TERS.
correctly. Yeah. No.
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 So
The
that's-
TERS is taxes that we collect from people who already made improvements.
I'm specifically
No.
speaking about the
No,
utilities
that's the
department
agency.
and their budget. The utilities department is replacing all the water lines, the majority of the water lines in the downtown currently. They have their plan set out already, that's coming out of their
So
budget.
it's probably something already
It's-
going along the lines with.
Yeah,
with
so
our
I wanted to
research.
just, I know that you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier about that, so I wanted to mention that to you. And on the TERS side does have a little bit over a quarter, I think the last one was 250.
The
something
TERS,
like
they
that.
were already making 5 cents, now they're paying 10, so the difference is what is being
What's being collected and put
Yes.
So, yeah,
aside.
the
So
TERS is,
Reimbursement.
yeah.
But we need a lot more money than
Well,
200,000.
Well,
Yes.
Because you'll finish it up in,
And that one's probably already earmarked for something else. I mean,
Yes.
the
And
reality.
that's where I want to lead to, Mr. Chairman. That money, there is a finance and use plan already in place.
Yes, for
Approved
that money.
by city council. And that focus of that money is going to go for that initial first corridor. That's basically, if Prop B goes into play with the convention center, we're looking at the Zaragoza to the outlet connection and that infrastructure corridor.
Oh, the lights and everything, yeah.
Yeah, so that's going to be the first priority of that money. That's gonna-
I just think I just
So-
wanted to know how our tax money is doing. If we're gonna, if the city's gonna put some money down and the church is gonna be, and the city's gonna put, those are our tax, that's everybody's money.
Yes.
So then I would want, who is getting how much? Who are the owners of the building that are doing the development? And how much is the church putting and how much is our tax money doing, and make it public?
No, exactly.
You know, I
And I
just-
think what would be important in that, and where this major question lies, is like when we're talking about the water connections. The water connections, it seems to be that it's leaning more on the city's job.
Okay.
But if the city goes, well, you know, we can't just decide to upgrade all the water connections instantly, I'd rather the developers, when they do that project, go in there and upgrade their line themselves. Well, then, yes, it's taxpayer funds that are going towards these incentives, but it's covering the cost of something that typically the city would do. So we need to understand those nuances of what typically the city needs to do, but, you know, they're putting the money here to let the developer go and do it themselves, versus, let's say, in this proposal, we have an agreement, if a project's proposed and then gets permitted, that the city will go and fix that water line. So
I think the main task right now is you've already identified that the residential is the main thing that's needed, yes. Now, cities already got a plan in action to fortify their systems because they're gonna be able to sell water, provide more service.
Yeah.
It benefits the utilities department to fortify their system, as well as it benefits the city because we're getting now these buildings used as they're really vacant, so that's good. The thing that you need to say is, I guess, is how to get it across, because I believe this is at the infant stage right now.
Yes, this was the initial presentation to put together a task force.
Yeah, the money and all that, you know, it's city council and their wisdom, they need to figure it out. I mean, and you guys are just providing an avenue, right?
To start the study on figuring out, so I would love, that's gonna be hard to like test that project because it's a historic building, there's probably gonna,
Yeah, it's not gonna have the same issue.
but,
Different type of funding.
I
source,
I have been discussing with another group that found these buildings, you know, this whole, there's not enough parking, actually has, a basement that they can actually turn into parking. They're doing that study right now, so I'm curious to see what those numbers will come out to. But referring to the city's tax funds, and how it's not city's money, it's taxpayers' money.
Of course.
What was really interesting, and I spoke about this at the last meeting, I'm not sure if you were there, it's
No.
what's going on in Houston right now. Houston has stopped building roads and annexing land because the cost to develop the infrastructure for that new land is not actually, the cost is greater than the tax generation that's coming in. Because these lines, the roads, everything is a lot more expensive than it used to be back in the 70s.
Right.
So part of whatever proposal finally gets put together, an incentive policy, and whatever the city, if they do agree to come in, or the taxpayer agrees to come in, is making sure that everyone is educated and understanding that as the biggest bang for our buck, we are better off densifying our city and spending money on incentivizing density than stretching ourselves further along, these suburb lines, because that ends up costing us, the taxpayer, more. So we need to understand not just where the dollar is being spent, but why. So I think part of this, that's going to be important.
Yes, no, and I understand your point.
Yeah.
But sometimes it is more expensive to rebuild and to demolish and to rebuild than build a brand new building.
Yes and no. I
Well,
would
it's a
say
yes.
that back in probably 2006, but right now, like in San Antonio, the cost of development is easily over $120 a square foot. That back in 2006, I think it was $55 a square foot.
And how much would
Over-
you be, are you thinking, let's say, well, that really has nothing to do with the city, how much you would charge? Because I know in downtown San Antonio, in downtown Austin, you want to get into an apartment, they're like standing room only, and they're super expensive. So is that gonna, or you're gonna make it affordable?
Well, that's way into the, that's because it's become
Yes.
a super successful area. We are not there. Right now, we're in the early stages of all this.
Yes.
But I remember back in San Antonio, because I'm back and forth a lot of the time doing real estate there, the Pearl area, it's the office, they couldn't lease it because it was new to San Antonio people. Now, they're charging 4 times the rent, but it's not because they're gouging people, it's because people want to be there, and it's simple supply and demand.
I think one of the
I think we're
banks, one of the banks, they were gonna concentrate themselves all in the Pearl area.
So I was just at, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with CCIM, Certified Commercial Investment Managers. It's a group of commercial real estate agents. Okay, designation.
Yes, I know.
They just had one they just had their symposium in San Antonio yesterday that I just came from. And their major talk, and this is really interesting, and I spoke about this last time also, companies are not looking at the cost of real estate as a determining factor to develop something in an area or not. Back at a given point, people would consolidate buildings because it made it more efficient and cheaper. Now, they are vacating buildings in these northern parts of San Antonio and consolidating their buildings by the Pearl at a higher cost than their current real estate cost, because of retention for their employees, because they know in order to get the employees they want, those employees want to live and work in those type of areas.
Yes, I'm familiar with
Yeah.
San Antonio because half here and half over there I live.
Okay,
So I
so
live
you
in
see
both,
it.
I live in
Yeah.
both places. But I guess right now, the point is not of development, because if you're gonna pay for it 100% yourself, you develop everywhere, wherever you want to. But our concern here is our tax money. And that's, we have to watch out, where are we gonna spend it? And who are we gonna lend it to at a 2% rate or a forgivable loan? That's why the conversation is here.
I'm gonna say this again,
Out there.
I'm not proposing the forgivable loan, I don't want that to be a
Oh,
topic of
okay.
this.
No, I
This is-
thought that
this
you
was-
did mention it, so.
No, this is just a copy, so you can see an
Of what's
example.
going on.
Yes, I'm not, yeah, because that's giving away money, that's something that is, I'm not sure if it's even required, because people are starting,
Right.
there's new businesses already moving downtown.
Yes, it's already moving.
So I don't
So
think,
how do you see downtown, I mean, you see more bars are going in,
I think you're gonna see,
opening the conference center, I mean, in my opinion, I'm for the conference center, I think if it does go in, you got the outlet mall, I mean, you're starting to get, but you're missing, like you said, the component of the
Entertainment.
residential, but then we're stuck where we gotta be, where we all need to be on the same page as far as, the ordinances are in place and know what, and maybe that's where you were alluding to, the cost, do models so we can see what the cost will be.
that's, yeah, we
And
don't
for it to be
propose.
feasible for people to be able to invest, and if it's not feasible, how can we close in, you know, I mean, the city also doesn't want to lose money, you know what I mean? They don't want to be able, they want to incentivize where eventually they'll get their money back in higher taxes. So we've got all these parts, it's trying to just gel it together. I know Arturo's got a lot of experience in that, and so what do you recommend? You recommend maybe, I know you recommend like a committee, but maybe having some models? I mean, we got our committee here, we can have special meetings if you have,
Another presentation.
yeah, maybe, so what is it that you,
My goal to start this off is first to build the committee so we can have individuals. What I would like to do is, do a model and work with some individuals that can assist me on doing a model of an example of a building downtown and what the current cost is. But I also want other individuals to be able to, one, go and also grab some data from other cities, because the beauty of us kind of lagging behind other cities is we get to learn from other cities on what actually worked, and we can be efficient on that. And just put together a presentation on, one, what other cities have done, and then what we've distilled out of that would be most effective for Laredo. So yes, my goal is to put it.
I think we can all be in the committee now. We can have where we have where we don't have a quorum, and so we have more like a work session. Maybe you can help me with, we don't want to break any regulation, but the rule, but where we can have some of these meetings. And if you want to spearhead it, then we can, whoever wants to attend, as long as we don't have a quorum, or if we are going to have a quorum, then we need to post the agenda item and have a special meeting.
I already have some individuals, Cash Casanova wants to assist.
You can make him working meetings, just as long as you post them and everything else.
Okay. But if we don't have a quorum,
And
then
the
we
only thing he
don't.
feels that they have that input.
Yeah.
You never have.
Yeah, I mean, you can have those meetings and invite us, and some of us can make it, some of us.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But if we're gonna have a quorum, then we need to say, you know what, we're gonna have a quorum,
The sixth-
John, you can't go because we're gonna have a
The
quorum.
safe bet, sir, is just to post a meeting and then just invite the rest of the members and full participation.
Yeah,
I'm just concerned about the elderly people there, and they have the bars. It's something like the industrial parks, and you have housing, and they don't like the trucks around them. The same thing, you can have old people, and they have bars, and too much noise.
Oh, people party too.
They like to party.
We have
They don't have
They've been here right for so long. May I say something first real quick, just generally, because I gotta leave. Generally, I have issues with having more committees being funded by the city. I think what we can do here, if we want to focus our efforts on what we've been talking about today, I think we are the kinds of people that would be willing to do the work necessary to do the models, et cetera. If y'all would like to do a committee on your own, in your own time, with no government involvement.
we can, if we need that committee,
Yeah.
we can start with that, but we don't necessarily, if we don't have a quorum, if it's 3 of us or 4 of us.
Well, and I don't mean it, because I gotta go, y'all can do whatever you want on your own time, right? I mean, the LDF is a private organization that develops, development here, is it supposed to develop stuff here in Laredo? And I would be against the idea of yet another committee. I mean, I thought that's what we were supposed to be
That's
doing
exactly
here. So unfortunately, I'd have to disagree on that. With respect to I have a general support of further empowering not just the NEZ, but the TERS, and then the unfortunately failed MMD or whatever it's called. But I also, and I think I've talked to John about this before.
Dormant.
Do what? The dormant
It
MMD.
just hasn't been activated.
Well, I think there was a lot of issues at the front end that made it tough to activate on the back end. But in any event, without going into that, I'm also, and I talked to John about this, the type of things that we need to, be cognizant of. And one of those things is our reality, right? I took down some notes, and our reality is, how do people get in and out of downtown? I mean, number one, I think there are issues with the entrance and exits of people coming into downtown that currently exist, that are reality.
We're talking about the
What?
separation?
No, I'm talking about just coming to downtown. Coming to downtown is relatively easy. I come down here every day, but there's, number one, really only one way in and out if you're talking about coming down here, and that's either on the highway all the way or on the highway to Scott Washington. That's usually it. Or you're coming down like Matamoros or whatever the other one is going the other way. And so coming in and out and adding lots of people to that is not going to be conducive to improvement of living in that area. And so before, I think, we start doing some of these things, we need to talk to the city, the engineers, to talk about traffic flow, which is typically something that they are good at, to determine how we flow traffic, not just in and out of downtown, but then downtown itself. I mean, those are two different problems, right? I think, as you were alluding to, like, when downtown was built, I imagine people were using horse carriages, and so the roads are small. And so how easy is it to get around downtown? Pretty tough. I mean, I like it. I'd come down to Cultura all the time, and, you know, I work at the courthouse, and it's not that big a deal for me, but we got to deal with the reality that it's a big deal for a lot of people. And whether it's true or not, it's still the perception that we have to fight. So,
Can I just
how do
chime
we,
in on that?
in just a moment, how do we get the city, where do the funds come for the city to make both of those things easier? And the answer is, I don't know yet, because we haven't gone down that road yet, right? What do the engineers think, right? Like, what is the budget for, hey, you know, let's make downtown look like downtown San Antonio? Well, it doesn't really look like that, because downtown San Antonio was built as a commercial area. So Commerce is a 4-lane street going one way in San Antonio. That makes it really easy to get around down there. The CBD in San Antonio is bounded by lots of highways, so you don't have to worry about just coming in one way. You do have to worry about that in Laredo. So how do we fix that problem? The answer is, I don't know yet. But it seems to me that before we start using taxpayers' money for this stuff, we need to figure out how we're going to use taxpayers' money for the basic stuff. And as an Economic Development Advisory Council, I would focus on the foundation before we focus on, right, the rest of it, right? You start, when you do a building, you start at the foundation, right? You get all the stuff done first, and then you do the rest of it. But that's why I was really interested to hear some of your concerns, right? Like, we were focusing on, for example, the
water.
sprinklers and the water, but what about the drivability? What about the roads? What about the lights? What about the sequencing? What about the sidewalks, right? What about the street lights?
The parking.
The parking. I mean, you know, like, that's just all stuff that if we do Plan B, is that gonna make it harder for us to fix the foundation? I mean, I would imagine so.
There's solutions, it's just, money's always the issue, right?
So where do we get the money?
That's not my department.
No, I know that, but,
Well, several ways.
go ahead, you want to say something, Julian? I didn't.
Well, so I think the way you're thinking about it is correct. The one thing I will say I think is incorrect is you mentioned, or not incorrect, I think.
That's okay. I've been wrong before.
No, it's just the perspective. It's we're used to thinking as things as if we're gonna build something, how do people get to it? But what we're building is an ecosystem, which, so I have friends that when they move to San Antonio, they move downtown, and they move downtown for one strict point, so they don't have to leave it.
And that's true,
So,
Julian, and that's
the
a great
ecosystem-
anecdotal story. And I know there are studies out there that it works in Portland, it works in Austin, it works in Houston. But those cities are geographically different than Laredo. Those cities have very different cultures than Laredo. Those cities have very different norms than Laredo. And it makes it tough for me to say, we're all gonna move downtown, but there's no grocery store, I can't drive it, I can't park anywhere, and I can only really get in on 35. San Antonio's different. I mean, I don't want to be anecdotal, right? But I lived in San Antonio in the downtown was crap, and I lived in Houston when the downtown was crap, and I saw both of them fail. And it's so easy to get in and out of either downtown, because if one highway is blocked, you just go to another.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Finish. I totally agree with you on that the city money should be used in our streets, in updating our water lines, in our lights, in our sidewalks, and let the building owners take care of their building.
And so, but there should be an
That's
incentive,
that's where our
right?
money, tax money should be,
Go ahead.
in our public use.
Your concern is when everybody goes downtown, what's gonna happen?
Well, how much,
All those
like, how
people-
much harder would that make it to fix the stuff that we haven't yet fixed?
Yeah.
Right, like, because I don't know what the timing of this plan is. And so, if we put the cart before the horse, then it's already hard to get stuff fixed. Like, I just came down Houston and it was blocked, and I was like, well, I guess I gotta go around the federal courthouse, or go around the old post office or whatever, and that's cool, and I know you are doing your job, and I can stand it, because I can leave. But I was around in Houston when they did the light rail, and they thought, hey, you know what, we're gonna build the light rail, and people will start living around the Houston light rail, because it'll be easy to get around. You can't change people's habits that way, right? I'd like my car, I'm gonna drive my car downtown.
I think-
Uber has been huge, because it makes it easier, but that's because I still get to get in a car.
I think most of the streets downtown should be like Farragut, two-way.
They're already working on that.
I don't know.
And then on the.
I'm not a civil engineer. I don't know about traffic flow. Like, I'm a mechanical engineer, so I know a little bit about traffic flow, and I know it's just like a bottleneck, right? If you have a street that looks like this, and then you have everybody coming up down here, they're all gonna bottleneck, and what's gonna happen is it's just gonna fill everything else up, regardless of how easy it is to get along the rest of it, right? So I'm not that expert, right? I don't get to make those decisions. I'm relying on building and civil engineers to tell me, how easy is it to do this? And if the answer is, it's really not that easy, or it'd be easy if we had lots of money, well, if you don't have lots of money, then it's not easy, right? So what do we do, right? I don't say do nothing. I don't think that's an option, you know, because we certainly want to move the city forward. I certainly am very in favor of Prop B.
I
I'm
think
in favor
everybody
of
got
Prop A.
used to with Chihuahua and Guadalupe. I think everybody got used to now with Washington and Victoria and all these streets that are one way to get the mass flow out.
I think we're
But it does need coordination. There is some things that need coordination because there's street up lights and there's city lights, and they need to coordinate. And that's already been talked about with the traffic department, but, you know, yeah, but as far as the traffic is concerned, if they do a convention center, on every event, the only way is like whenever you have events at cities. Whenever like, you go watch a Dallas Cowboy game, which is what I like, right? They have, the city of Arlington has all these people directing traffic because you're intensifying traffic to one area. So what needs to happen, any event, you know.
They do it at the AT&T Center.
That's what needs to happen.
Especially for the-
You can't design for the ultimate, you design for a typical, and then whenever there's an event, that's gonna be where you gotta have cops, or you gotta have this, and that's really the solution to that, because I mean, yeah, you could design for it to be a 8-lane, one-way, and then, you know, the other day, it's a regular typical Sunday afternoon, there's nobody using it, so, but you got this big old road, you know, is it feasible to do that, you know? I
And
don't
we
know.
have to take advantage of Mr. Murillo because he's retiring soon. That's another story.
Yes, but,
The
I
most
mean,
experienced.
When's he retiring?
I don't know. I heard he's
He says that it's 5
retired.
years. Just kidding.
I don't
Something
know,
like
I heard
that.
he is.
You had some things you wanted to address, sorry.
Well, no, I was just gonna end it on a simple note, which is, we're looking at this as a simple math problem, and it's not. As the Economic Development Advisory Committee, we need to look at the future, and if you look at the stats and you look at what our future is, we have a major brain drain problem here, and part of that is because, and I was guilty of it, and I came back, I'm working here predominantly now, but we need to look at, yes, where our city's funds are going, but are they investing in the future of what the city needs to be? And in order to not only just prevent a lot of people from leaving and also realize that we need to try to start bringing people into the city if we want to prosper economically. So this is an investment towards the future of our city and what it's going to look like, and if that product is going to be desirable not only to the kids we have, but to other people's kids. Because right now we have a lot of individuals that leave, and I want to say 8 out of 10 of my friends that move to other cities move to their downtowns because that's where they want to be. So it's not as simple, does 1 + 1 will always equal 2? We have to look at it just like San Antonio did, which is, yeah, we invested a lot initially, but the return on that investment over the course of those 7 years was astronomical. And that's the taxpayers. They're looking, that study just focused on the tax revenue that was brought in from the real estate tax. That didn't even focus on the fact that recently announced WeWork, which is a office-style incubator concept, which is going to house up to 2,100 people that are looking to do startups, geekdom that moved downtown to San Antonio. It's being able to create that product that not just the future citizens of Laredo will most likely desire, because the stats prove that that's what they're desiring, but these companies and the type of retention they're looking for, and when it comes to attracting higher income, higher payout companies, that's a major problem in Laredo. We don't have, what's our medium income? It's like 34 something? 34. We need to start targeting companies that pay a lot higher, and they're not going to come here if they can't convince people to come to Laredo. So we need to look at this, a little more broadly than a simple math problem, because I don't think we'll get anywhere if we do.
I hope you didn't think I thought this was talking about a simple math problem. My concern is the focus of who we're trying to attract, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Laredo has, and I'm not saying historically, I'm saying generally speaking, we're not going to get the geekdoms, we're not going to get the WeWorks. And I'm not saying that, true, but they're going to very specific areas for very specific reasons. And certainly that's a good aspiration, but I think we can work with what we've got. So as an example, we are in desperate need of medical professionals, and we have 2 very good hospitals and other types of healthcare things going up, and the ERs, the urgent care clinics, and so attracting those type of people, the transportation people, which we're obviously very dependent on because of NAFTA, the industrial people because of where we are, the oil and gas people because of where we are. However, my concern is that what we've got and what we can focus on and what we can improve with the type of people that we already have are not the kind of people that are going to want to live downtown because of its walkability. They might want to live downtown because it's cool or because it's coming up or whatever, but those types of people that we are attempting to attract, attempting to retain, will not, I don't think, be limited by location of residence. And so, as an example, and I hear the brain drain argument a lot in Laredo, but brain drains happen everywhere. Again, I was guilty of it. I left at 18, came back at 34. But people that live in Houston are like, I just want to live somewhere else. They leave, and it happens. And there's nothing wrong with either leaving or trying to do whatever it is you want to do to better your personal situation. I'm not saying Laredo is bad, but there's other opportunities that you won't get here in Laredo, and that's just how it is. So again, our reality is we have a major need for doctors, PAs, nurses, nurse practitioners here in Laredo, and I'm concerned that if we're focusing on bringing people like that and improving living quality of life for people like that profession and other professions like the legal profession, which we sorely need. We're a city of 300,000 people with 300 lawyers. It is terrible, and 200 of them do criminal work, so I tell you, we must have a lot of criminals.
Or immigration.
Yeah, well, no, 200 are government employees are doing criminal defense. And so I would like to have geekdom, I would like to have the Dells come down here, but they're not at this point coming down here, and so I think we need to crawl before we walk. if that makes any sense.
Yeah, there
And
needs
so-
to be a short-term and a long-term, but we need to have something to aspire to, and we need to start making investments towards that direction. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, WeWork would have never been to San Antonio 7 years ago, back in 2012, they just wouldn't. Geekdom didn't open up till 2013, and that was due to a private investor that was trying to bring that and the city's incentives on the building that they went into. So I agree with the idea that they're not gonna come down here probably in the next 4 years, but if we have that same mentality, they will never, and when I say they, I don't mean specifically they, I mean those type of businesses will never come down here. And when it comes to tech, San Antonio's tech industry they were trying so hard to bring it, and they couldn't compete with Austin. They just couldn't, until they realized what they can special in when it came to tech, which was cybersecurity. So from 2012 to now, all those investments in tech paid off with a $300 million grant in order to bring cybersecurity to UTSA. I think we just got actually a coding program for health, which goes into the whole nursing thing, which is an incredible thing.
It's a little different, right? Coding is insurance stuff, and it's related to whether or not you get billed, and it's basically an entire job on its own when you're doing the difference between Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance, HMOs, PPOs, and then workers' comp. So it's a whole different issue. It's more math, accounting than nursing, but yeah, I know.
But so just on that point, where I want to end is, so San Antonio figured out, okay, we need to specialize, and that's what you're saying, specialize, let's tap into our things, and trust me, I agree with you like 100%. So why can't we not start focusing on trying to bring tech companies for import-export, for border security? We are literally the perfect playground for that, and we can easily aspire to get that. I think we just need to set the long-term goals, and then be realistic on the short term. So I agree with you on that.
But Ronnie's not here, but as they have the best nursing in the country, because when they finish, they pass the exam. Now they're bringing cybersecurity, a whole.
So that it was a cybersecurity program here, right?
They're bringing it,
Yeah.
yes, and they're putting a lot of money into that at Laredo College.
And
Ronnie's
Laredo
not
College
here,
needs
so
housing,
He's out of
by the
town,
way.
by the way.
Yeah, definitely.
So how cool would it be if we can figure out how to do such a thing where instead of them being in dorms, we just activate the current existing buildings down
St.
there
Peter's.
with a rapid transit that goes back and forth? Because I'm telling you right now, those individuals would rather live here than live on dorm with nothing around them. That's a guarantee. There's no one that's gonna know, I want to be secluded over there. So that's something we can tap into.
And we can
I'd
talk
rather
to
be
Ronnie.
closer to the bars and the school.
Ronnie's out of
Yeah.
town,
I hear college students like to drink, I don't know. That's what I hear.
Water, drink water.
Well, very good. So then, I guess we're gonna see, I mean, put
Yeah, more
a
meetings.
presentation, get something going, and we'll try and either, if we get a quorum, we'll do it. If not, we can do it within a group,
Okay.
several of us. and we'll help
There's
you
some
out.
individuals that want to help, non-committee members.
Yeah,
They
no,
want to help out, so
bring them on.
is that okay, like
Absolutely.
unofficially, if
We-
they're assisting?
This is
Okay.
all, this is a community thing. It's not a committee thing. It's really-
Okay.
We want to do good for the community.
Awesome.
Gentlemen, do y'all have anything? Is there any
We're
other,
here to answer anything you want on the.
other than Chick-fil-A, y'all need anything?
No, we're good.
Who got the spicy sandwiches? I was like ready for my normal sandwich, and then it was spicy, and I was like,
Oh,
Committee members, do y'all have any, y'all have anything else?
so no action on this item?
I'm sorry?
The committee doesn't want to take
There's
any
no,
formal action?
I don't think, y'all, committee members, what do you, I mean, there's really no, other than that we plan to meet, maybe, Julian's gonna take the lead on it and see if we can maybe come with some models, right? That we can work on and see, I guess the whole intent is see how we can close this gap of the current city ordinances, the costs, and making it into a viable project for a prudent investor.
This is not for the creation of the CRIT that we're working, because it would be like another creation, like the church that we need to create, like the MMD
No,
that's
this
there
would
but
be-
is dormant.
This would be within the NEZ. This would be an update to the neighborhood empowerment zone. That's why his concern was based off of, do we have the staff to make sure all this is going on?
So this would be part of the NEC?
We don't-
Or
It
the
would be
NEC
another-
would be this?
Not-
From the
we
NEC would
don't.
be to this?
Well,
No,
because there's
it
like a
would-
policy for NECs.
Yes.
And he's recommending
Amending.
amending.
Amending the
Yes.
NEC, so it would still be the NEC, this would just be
Under
within.
NEC.
Exactly, so
So
we
right now,
wouldn't have to create.
we need
a
to
whole-
work on that, get something for then, we can come into a committee and say, okay, this is what we make,
I would recommend that maybe you look at that, bringing that as your committee, I guess you're volunteering to be the committee member to lead that effort for the
Yeah.
advisory committee. Bring it up at the next meeting as to what you've researched, and then come up
well,
with.
he's gonna
suggest
have,
something.
he's gonna try and get a little, or invite us and see if we can all, you know, come together or see if we can formulate something that in turn we can bring, like you said.
So you're creating your committee?
Unofficial committee,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, he's
Other
gonna invite us.
committees have done when we did
Like little workshops, yeah.
the workshops,
That's what I was kind of.
when we did the sign ordinance, redid it, the technical review board, ad hoc committee, they would get a couple or 3 or 4 of them from the committee not to make a quorum. They would discuss and stuff and then bring it back to the
That's what we
committee
wanna do.
and say, this is what we discussed, these are the things, so that
Right.
it's more refined point of view than just a
Right.
broad.
There's a lot of work to be done.
Right.
Yeah,
Not-
there's-
So a
this
section
will
of
be
that.
done in the next
Let's
3
try to get
weeks.
3 of us and
Okay.
3 or 4 of us, no more than 4. And so we'll work on it.
Okay.
Well, very good. With that, thank you very much. Thanks. Stands adjourned.
Thank you.
Well, do you want to have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Motion, those second, all
Second.
those in favor?
All right.
All those don't?
I know.
Can you go into that?
Yeah.
window?
You can show us,